All right, so just to dive into some of the things that we've got coming up in the near term that I wanted to share with the group today. In 13.9, we're releasing an alert dashboard, which is a big deal. We've been working on this for a long time. It's our first release in the new security orchestration category. What this does is it lets you take security alerts across the company and surface them on a dashboard and provides a workflow for users to triage those and respond to them. So I'll show you a quick demo of this. So this is in staging, and I never know what I'm actually going to get. So I come here and I just hope it all works. And right now it's actually very similar to the monitor team's alert dashboard. In fact, we reused a lot of code from their area of the product. The difference is the operations alerts are all centered around things like CPU utilization and memory utilization and network bandwidth and disk space, like things that keep the cluster up and running. Whereas these security alerts are all focused on actual security events that would be reviewed by a security organization. So for this very first release, the only type of alert that we support right now is alerts coming from your network policies, your basically from GitLab's container network security. So to set these up, you actually go to your policies section. When you go to create a new policy, a new network policy, you're able to specify your rule that allows the traffic in, because Cilium works in a mode where it denies all traffic that does not match a rule. And then, so you create this, say, I'm looking for traffic that's inbound to, any entity on, port 22. Is what I'm interested in. In that case, really nobody should be SSHing into a live container that's running. That's not best practice, but there may be a business need to allow this to happen. Perhaps, administrators just absolutely have to have a backdoor into the containers to keep them up and running if something goes wrong. So in that case, from a security perspective, the business requires it. So you want to allow the traffic in, but you also want to monitor that very closely. So you come in here, you would click add an alert. You'll see it adds this, send an alert to GitLab. And when you create this policy, anytime traffic comes in on port 22, it will now generate an alert that shows up back on that alert dashboard. This is not intended to be a logging tool. Like if you're just trying to capture all traffic, then you're misusing alerts. Alerts should be, as it says here in this message, right? Like alerts should be things that are limited to low volume events that are concerning, and you actually have a human reviewing those events. It's not just, log all traffic that's inbound on port 80. That would be overwhelming. You might also want to generate an alert for traffic attempts outbound, from the container, which might indicate some kind of data exfiltration. So at a super high level, that's where we're at. We have a lot of issues planned to improve the UI experience here. We want to introduce more of a Kanban style workflow. Anyway, there's a lot that's coming in the future for this page, but our first release is coming out in 13.9. The only other big thing that I wanted to cover real briefly is our work in security orchestration. We're working to create a policies page where you can configure, require scans to be run for certain projects. And this will have a different set of permissions than editing the GitLab ci.yaml file. So that way, only maintainers will be able to propose changes to these policies, and then only a named list of individuals, typically your security team, will have the authority to approve those policy changes. And once you have a policy set up to require a scan to take place, again, like your average developer can't turn that off. It takes precedence regardless of what's in your GitLab ci.yaml file. So it ensures that, no matter what, you can sleep easy at night knowing that, your DAST scan is going to run with the configuration that you specify. So that's the next big thing that we're working on here. And I'll leave it with that sort of short overview just for the sake of time. But if there are customers that would have feedback in either of those two areas, we're very interested in that. We're doing research in that area right now, trying to make sure that it's going to meet their needs.
Awesome. That was that. So what you just presented, Sam, was really, really cool. It is a very hot topic in a lot of my customer sites. I see that you're iterating with network policy first. Is that going to expand out to other areas?
Yes, absolutely. So, you think of container host security, which monitors process starts and file reads and writes. So those things should be able to generate alerts. Your scan policies that I just talked about, right, which don't exist in the product yet today, but will in the future, that you might want to flag or get an alert when a new critical vulnerability is identified in certain projects. So we want to give you the ability to schedule scans and also to generate alerts off of that. So you can say, okay, run a scan once a week against these sensitive projects. And if I see any new critical vulnerabilities, send me an alert so I can go review it. And then the other area that we're thinking about is GitLab itself. So suppose a user, this is a little bit in the insider threat realm, but suppose a user logs in from the US one day and then 5 minutes later also logs into GitLab from Russia. Well, there's no way they were in two places at the same time. Maybe they used a VPN of sorts, but that's really suspicious. That might generate an alert. So basically anything that can be classified as a security alert that a human would need to go and review manually, that's what we plan to surface in that page. If it's something that can be handled programmatically, like if you know that you want to drop the traffic, you don't need to generate an alert for that. You just drop the traffic, right? But these are things that actually warrant human review is what that page is intended to be.
Is there any plan to include any kind of activity going on the code repository? So this is all happening in the CI space right now, presumably, because there will be some scans going on. And then once the continuous delivery portion occurs, and then there's that monitoring piece going on. But I'm kind of pulling it further upstream if there's anything going on there.
Yeah, so my vision is definitely inclusive of that. Like I said, anything that would constitute a security alert in anywhere in GitLab, this is the dashboard for that. We do not have any definitive roadmap plans to make that happen, what you're talking about, but it's definitely part of the vision.
Good. No, that helps. Yeah, we can't get there yet, but
Right.
it's nice to know that you're planning for a bigger vision on that, which is kind of cool. The other question I had was, at some point, I'm hoping that there will be a way to integrate or import data from other tools as well. Is that a part of the vision or not?
So that is not. We are explicitly not trying to be a SIEM. We're not trying to replace a SIEM. That's a really complicated problem to solve for, because you end up collecting and storing just a tremendous volume of data. So that would be a whole problem space in and of itself, to be able to ingest logs from other systems, deduplicate them, enrich the data, aggregate them. So no, that's not part of the vision. For people who are not using Kubernetes though, that is part of our vision, but it's not part of the near-term vision. So right now we're very laser focused on Kubernetes only. At some point, we're going to go from infancy here to viable and complete. And at that point, we're going to start branching out, looking at serverless on the one side and VMs and, bare metal machines on the other side. But that would probably involve the creation of new groups inside of Protect. Like right now, Protect just has the container security group, but you can imagine a serverless group in the future, or on-prem group in the future, but that's pretty far into the future. Right now we're Kubernetes only, and we want to nail it there before we expand out.
Understood. So in the realm of Kubernetes, for example, AWS might have some similar things that it's doing with regards to alerts and monitoring. Any plans on integrating with that, or would this be a replacement for that or an augmentation to that? Like where do you see that fitting in?
Yeah, so network policies, Kubernetes network policies especially, are widely used all over the place. Customers can just use them on their own. They don't need GitLab. Google and Amazon have integrations with network policies, and we do too, right? So this is a replacement for that, but I believe we're in a better position to manage that because we own the code repository.
Cool.
So that's really the story there, is that you're able to manage your network policies as code in your code repository. You have full change log auditing. You can put it through an approval process. So a lot of these other tools, even, tools like Twistlock and, other professional tools that do this are lacking some of those capabilities. So there's a lot that we offer just by being a code repository and handling some of these security policies as code.
Cool. That's powerful. That message is very, very powerful, I think. And then last but not least, I have a lot of customers running Openshift. Are we going to be supporting that flavor of Kubernetes? Is that something that's on your radar, or is that not at all on your radar?
It's on more of the long-term radar. It's tricky because right now we're using AppArmor, and Openshift doesn't support AppArmor. And we're also installing through GitLab Managed Apps version 2, which requires admin privileges in the cluster and root access, and Openshift doesn't allow root access. So we're a ways away from supporting Openshift. The new GitLab Kubernetes agent, I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that the configure team has been working on, that will help because that does not require root access. So that gives us a way to go in and install without requiring that. So I don't know. We're going to have to wait till we actually test it out. But I suspect, once that work is done, we'll have partial support for Openshift, but we require AppArmor for our blocking. And so that piece may just never work on Openshift unless we move away from AppArmor to something else. But eventually, yes, we'd like to support it, but it's going to be a slow process to get there.
Okay. I think maybe, I know we're a little bit over time at this point, but I'm just, maybe we can take it up offline or asynchronous to discuss a little bit, because there's the end goal approach, which is like you described, to be able to do everything automated, but then there might be a maybe secondary option where we can offer, hey, you install what you want to install there by your admins, but then once it's installed, then we can connect to it somehow. If
Right.
That's even an option, then maybe that might be something we should consider, I would think.
Yes, I think the biggest sticky point is AppArmor. I don't think Openshift supports AppArmor at all, if I'm not mistaken. So that's not even like, even an admin can't really do that. So I don't know. There's a lot to be done there. Quite frankly, it's lower on our priority list right now because we are just in our infancy. Like, we're just trying to get these features going. But it is on our radar, at least. Like, I'm well aware of the need for Openshift. It's probably something that we're going to circle back to, and basically once we get this initial work done, we'll kind of pop our heads up and look around and say, okay, well, where are we at, and what's the delta between here and Openshift support? Like I said, it's very possible that we'll have at least partial support for some or most of our features, even if, so like 80%, but getting to that 100% is going to be a lot of extra work.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that, and it's not just this team that's struggling through that. It's all across GitLab that we're struggling with OpenShift as a whole. So very
Cool. I know the actual discussion part of this was a little bit short, but thanks for that discussion. And if you have other things, please feel free to send them async or in our PMCS sync channel. And that'd be it would be great if there are customers that have feedback in this area, and also if we can wrangle up a few others and see if we can get some better representation across the company for this in the future, I think are the big action items coming out of today.
Yep, we'll get right on it and get some of that movement going. Thank you for showing this stuff, Sam. This was excellent. I think this is the right direction, right kind of tone that you're setting here with what we want to be doing. I can't wait for this to come out. This will be really cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.